If you're a diehard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. The Cleveland Browns just can't seem to catch a break when it comes to keeping their roster healthy, and the latest setback has head coach Kevin Stefanski facing some tough decisions on special teams. On Monday, Stefanski confirmed what many feared after Sunday's loss to the Baltimore Ravens. Return specialist DeAndre Carter is officially in the NFL's concussion protocol. That means Cleveland is going to have to adjust quickly, because Carter, who was signed this offseason to inject some much-needed juice into the return game, is almost certainly out for next week's home matchup against the Green Bay Packers. Carter's injury came early, and it came fast. On the very first return of the game against Baltimore, he took a hit that left him visibly shaken. After heading to the sideline, he was escorted to the locker room alongside an independent neurologist, part of the NFL's tightened approach to handling head injuries. Not long after, the official ruling came down. Carter was done for the day. And given how the league has been cracking down on concussions in recent years, labeling them with maximum caution, it's hard to imagine a scenario where Carter clears protocol in just a handful of days. Stefanski himself described Carter's situation as day-to-day, but anyone who has followed the NFL's procedures knows that's more coach speak than reality. Day-to-day in the concussion world often stretches into weeks, sometimes longer. The timing couldn't be worse for Cleveland. The Browns made a point this offseason to bring in Carter on a one-year, $1.42 million contract. It wasn't a blockbuster signing, but it was a strategic one. Special teams had been a glaring weakness in 2024, and the front office believed Carter could steady that ship. In Week 1 against Cincinnati, Carter showed flashes of exactly why the Browns made that investment. He returned 3 punts for 41 yards, giving the offense better starting field position than they'd been used to, and his kickoff returns averaged 26.3 yards. Those numbers don't leap off the page, but when you're a team that has struggled to flip the field, every yard matters. Carter's presence gave the impression that Cleveland finally had someone reliable in the third phase of the game. Now, just 2 weeks into the season, the Browns are staring down the possibility of having to piece together a return strategy without their veteran spark plug. And that means opportunity, or pressure, depending on how you see it, lands squarely on the shoulders of rookie wide receiver Isaiah Bond. The undrafted wideout from Texas wasn't even supposed to be in this situation. He landed in Cleveland after sliding out of the 2025 NFL draft entirely, largely because of legal issues that clouded his draft stock. Once those matters were resolved, the Browns wasted no time locking him into a fully guaranteed 3-year deal, a rare vote of confidence for a player carrying off-field baggage. Bond is only 21 years old, and while his speed is undeniable, his resume as a return man is paper-thin. In college, he returned just 2 kicks. That's it. On Sunday against the Ravens, when he was thrust into action after Carter's exit, he looked like what he is, a talented but raw player feeling his way through one of the NFL's most unforgiving roles. There was hesitation in his steps, a lack of fluidity in his decision-making, and a clear sense that he's still processing rather than reacting. For a returner, that's dangerous. The return game is all about instincts, about seeing lanes before they open and trusting your speed to beat coverage units. Bond will have just 1 week to work under special teams coordinator Bubba Ventrone to tighten things up, and while that might sound manageable on paper, in reality, it's asking a lot of a rookie who barely had a preseason. Cleveland's staff knows this, which is why Jerome Ford is suddenly back in the conversation. Ford has been around the block with the Browns, and his versatility is the only reason he's still here. He restructured his contract this offseason, and that move, paired with his contributions on special teams, made him a lock for the roster. With Quinton Judkins making his NFL debut and Dylan Sampson emerging as the preferred change of pace back, Ford's offensive role is shrinking. That means his best path to consistent snaps may once again come through special teams. Ford has returned kicks before, and while he's not the kind of explosive home run threat that Carter can be, he brings stability, and right now, Cleveland might value reliability over explosiveness. The Browns' special teams unit is in a tough position because this isn't just about finding a warm body to field punts and kickoffs. The return game has been a point of emphasis all year. Stefanski and his staff made it clear back in camp that flipping field position was going to be crucial, especially in a division where every yard is contested. With Joe Burrow's Bengals, Lamar Jackson's Ravens, and Mike Tomlin's Steelers all fighting for AFC North supremacy, the margins are razor thin. You can't afford to start every drive pinned inside your own 20. That's why Carter's signing was so significant. And that's why his absence could be felt even more than people realize. It also raises questions about how sustainable this Browns roster is when injuries inevitably pile up. Carter is in his 8th NFL season. He's 32 years old. He's been through the grind. He's scored 6 career touchdowns, including a memorable kick return in 2021, but with age comes risk. Concussions don't heal the same way at 32 as they do at 22. If Carter misses extended time, and given the history of head injuries in the league, that's a very real possibility. Cleveland has to think beyond just week 3. They may need to consider long-term adjustments, whether that means leaning harder on Ford, accelerating Bond's development, or even scanning the waiver wire for available veterans who can stabilize the return game. For now, all eyes shift to Sunday's matchup with the Green Bay Packers. Cleveland is back at home, and the crowd at Cleveland Browns Stadium is going to be eager to see how this team responds after a divisional loss. But without Carter, the return game becomes a storyline in itself. Will Isaiah Bond prove he belongs in the league by stepping up under pressure? Or will Stefanski have to play it safe and hand the job back to Jerome Ford, who may not break one for a touchdown, but will at least ensure the Browns don't suffer a catastrophic fumble? These are the questions hanging over Cleveland as they prepare for Week 3. And let's not forget the ripple effects. When a return specialist goes down, it changes the complexion of special teams entirely. Punt coverage units prepare differently depending on the returner's tendencies. Offensive play calling can shift when field position suffers. Even the defense feels it. Shorter fields for the opponent can lead to quicker scores, which in turn puts more pressure on the offense. It's all connected. That's why a seemingly minor injury on special teams can snowball into a bigger storyline for a team that already has no room for error in a brutal division. Kevin Stefanski has tried to keep the mood steady, calling all injuries day-to-day, but fans know better. They've seen how cautious the league has become with concussions. They've seen players miss not just weeks, but entire seasons because symptoms linger. And they understand that Carter's path back to the field isn't just about clearing a checklist of protocol steps. It's about his long-term health. Until then, the Browns have to live in the moment, patch the hole, and hope their young pieces like Bond can rise to the challenge faster than expected. For a franchise desperate to prove it can compete in the AFC North, this is yet another hurdle. It's not a headline-grabbing quarterback injury or a defensive star sidelined, but it matters. Special teams matter. Field position matters. And in a league where every inch is contested, losing a reliable return man like DeAndre Carter could be the kind of subtle setback that shapes the season in ways people don't realize until much later. Cleveland has a week to find answers. Sunday will reveal whether they've found any. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. The NFL world was thrown into absolute chaos yesterday after a press conference that can only be described as explosive. Picture this. The Browns owner, Jimmy Haslam, steps up to the podium, and instead of the usual corporate speak, the carefully rehearsed platitudes, he launches into a tirade that left reporters, and frankly, fans, stunned. He's killing the Browns. Haslam yelled, pointing, as some onlookers swore they could see the veins in his neck pop. The target of this public humiliation? Head coach Kevin Stefanski, the man who just a few years ago was being lauded as a savior for Cleveland football. The moment felt almost cinematic, as if the NFL had suddenly been transformed into a reality show where drama is served hotter than touchdown chili. The room went silent, pens hovering over notebooks, microphones catching every syllable. There was laughter, there was disbelief, and there was that rare, head-spinning kind of tension that makes you want to rewind and watch the footage again and again. It was brutal, it was personal, and in a way, it was thrilling. People are already calling it the press conference of the decade, and let's be honest, it might not be far off. Whispers started immediately. Reporters in the room started exchanging glances, murmuring about the backstory, about the tension that everyone knew was simmering but nobody dared confirm. There have been rumors about the locker room dynamic for months. The Browns were supposed to be on an upward trajectory, After a string of promising seasons under Stefanski, optimism had reached near fever pitch. And yet, Haslam's comments suggested the cracks might be deeper than anyone expected. Killing the Browns isn't just a slap on the wrist. It's an indictment, a declaration that the very architect of the team's current strategy is somehow responsible for a slow, agonizing decline. Fans online erupted almost immediately. Twitter threads exploded with speculation, memes, and furious takes, ranging from full-blown outrage to incredulous humor. Some pointed fingers at the front office, some defended Stefanski, and some just stared at the unfolding spectacle in disbelief. The rumor mills are now working overtime, with whispers suggesting that the relationship between Haslam and Stefanski has been fractured for quite some time, despite the public face of unity the Browns have maintained. If you think about it, the timing couldn't be worse. The Browns are heading into a critical stretch of the season, and any sign of instability at the top could ripple through the team in unpredictable ways. Players are human beings, after all, and locker room morale can swing wildly when authority is questioned so publicly. There are even murmurs that some players might now be reconsidering their commitment, or at least questioning whether the culture in Cleveland is what they signed up for. The psychological impact of a public shaming by an owner cannot be understated, especially in a sport as demanding and team-oriented as football. And let's not forget the ripple effect in the league. Other teams, agents, and even the media are suddenly circling like vultures, trying to read between the lines of Haslam's outburst. Every word, every pause, every hint of a smirk or grimace is being dissected for clues about the future. Will Stefanski survive this storm? Will Haslam double down? Or was this an emotional outburst that will be smoothed over behind closed doors? Insiders suggest that tensions between Haslam and Stefanski have been simmering for months, even years, and this press conference might just be the tipping point everyone feared. There are whispers of disagreements over play calling, roster management, and even the direction of the franchise as a whole. Some say Haslam has long been frustrated with Stefanski's approach, thinking the coach is too cautious, too predictable, or perhaps too committed to a system that Haslam believes hasn't delivered the Super Bowl results he craves. Others suggest that Stefanski may have been increasingly resistant to Haslam's meddling, creating a classic clash of vision and ego. The media is now piecing together old interviews, cryptic social media posts, and subtle hints from past press conferences to create a timeline of tension, and the story that emerges is one of a slow-burning feud finally erupting in a way that nobody in the league will soon forget. Analysts are already speculating that if Stefanski survives this, it may be under conditions more constrained than ever before, with a much more hands-on Haslam monitoring every decision. Fans are reacting in a mixture of shock, disbelief, and, for some, a sense of betrayal. Cleveland has endured years of disappointment, and Stefanski was supposed to be the guy to change that narrative. To see him publicly called out in such stark terms by the man who owns the team is a bitter pill to swallow. Online forums are ablaze with theories. Some argue that this is a negotiation tactic, a way to publicly assert control and perhaps manipulate the coach into taking actions he might otherwise resist. Others see it as a warning shot to the rest of the league. Jimmy Haslam will not tolerate mediocrity, and he's willing to embarrass even the most respected professionals to prove that point. Then there are the more cynical takes, pointing to the spectacle itself, the idea that in today's media environment, drama drives engagement, and Haslam might be playing to the cameras as much as to Stefanski. Whatever the reality, one thing is clear: the Browns organization is now in the spotlight in a way that will dominate sports conversations for weeks, if not months. Some insiders hint that the front office has been quietly preparing contingency plans. Names of potential replacements for Stefanski are already circulating in whispers. Coordinators from other teams, high-profile assistants, and even former head coaches who have suddenly found themselves in the rumor mill. These are the kinds of whispers that can destabilize a franchise if they leak to players, agents, and the public, and in this case, they have started to leak. Even before the fallout of the press conference could fully settle, reporters began compiling lists, comparing coaching styles, potential schemes, and how any new hire might fit into the Browns' existing roster. Analysts on sports networks are already theorizing about the long-term impact on draft strategies, free agency plans, and salary cap management, all because one owner chose to publicly, and very vocally, humiliate his head coach. The reverberations of this moment could define Cleveland football for years to come, either as a cautionary tale of mismanagement and ego or as a dramatic turning point that ultimately reinvigorates the franchise. Meanwhile, Stefanski's response, or lack thereof, has become a story in itself. Early reports suggest he remained largely composed, speaking in measured tones when pressed, but the tension was palpable. His aides and team representatives are reportedly advising silence, trying to avoid adding fuel to an already roaring fire. The optics, however, are challenging. A coach who is publicly called out by the owner of his team faces an uphill battle in maintaining authority, confidence, and respect in the locker room. How players respond in the next few games could reveal a lot about the internal dynamics and whether Stefanski can retain the confidence of his roster in the wake of Haslam's dramatic outburst. Social media has already taken sides, with factions forming around the idea that Stefanski is either a scapegoat being unfairly targeted or a legitimate underperformer finally being called to account. The division is striking, and the debate is only intensifying with each passing hour. As night fell and the press conference footage spread like wildfire across YouTube, Twitter, and every sports app imaginable, the Browns organization faced a new reality. No amount of strategic planning, careful PR management, or motivational speeches can fully erase the sting of a public humiliation at the hands of an owner. The rumor mills are thriving, analysts are speculating, fans are fuming, and the league itself is watching with rapt attention. Some are calling for reconciliation, others for immediate change. One thing is certain: Cleveland football will never look the same in the aftermath of Haslam's scathing declaration. The drama, the tension, and the intrigue are far from over, and for fans of sports media, this may be the most riveting storyline of the NFL season. Jimmy Haslam humiliated Stefanski in a way that will be dissected for months, and whether it marks the beginning of a rebuilding phase, a coaching shakeup, or a slow-motion implosion, the Browns are now at the center of a storm that nobody saw coming, but everyone is talking about. The story has all the elements of a blockbuster: power struggles, human drama, public spectacle, and the looming question of what happens next. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!